Victoria stood in front of the bathroom mirror at the Ritz-Carlton in Atherton, California, staring at the small tube of red lipstick like it might explode. Her hand trembled slightly as she uncapped it, the crimson color looking impossibly bold against the gold tube. She had never worn anything like this before. Her entire life had been beige lip gloss and neutral tones, the kind of makeup that made you look polished but never noticeable. But tonight was different. Tonight, she was celebrating her first major promotion as a senior data analyst at Vertex Solutions, one of Silicon Valley's rising tech firms. Her coworker Brianna had practically forced this lipstick into her hand 2 hours ago, insisting that Victoria needed to mark this milestone with something memorable, something that screamed confidence. Victoria leaned closer to the mirror, her fair skin looking even more luminous under the warm bathroom lighting. She was a beautiful black woman with a complexion that her grandmother used to say looked like honey, but she had spent most of her 28 years trying not to be noticed. Growing up in a strict religious household in Houston, anything beyond the basics felt like rebellion. Makeup was vanity. Bold colors were attention-seeking. She had internalized those messages so deeply that even now, living in California and completely independent, she still felt guilty for wanting to stand out. She applied the lipstick slowly, carefully tracing her full lips. The transformation was immediate and startling. The red made her look powerful, dangerous even, like someone who made her own rules. Her heart pounded as she pressed her lips together, evening out the color. She looked like a different person. Maybe that was the point. Victoria took a deep breath, dropped the lipstick into her purse, and walked out of the restroom. The restaurant was elegant and understated, the kind of place where tech executives and old money mingled over wine that cost more than her car payment. Her team had reserved a large table near the windows, and she could see them laughing and toasting from across the room. She started walking toward them, hyper-aware of every step. The red lipstick felt like a spotlight. She fought the urge to turn around and wipe it off. Across the dining room, Wu Bin sat at a corner table with 3 of his business associates, discussing shipping routes and contract negotiations. He ran one of the most powerful Korean business operations on the West Coast, an organization that controlled logistics, international trade, and private security consulting. People called it a mafia because of how tightly Wu Bin controlled every aspect, how his word was law in certain circles, and how crossing him meant being shut out of opportunities across multiple industries. He was not involved in anything illegal, but his influence was absolute. When Wu Bin wanted something done, it got done. No questions, no delays. He was 34 years old and had been groomed for this life since childhood. His father had built the organization from nothing, and Wu Bin had expanded it into an empire. He was known for being strategic, ruthless in negotiations, and utterly unshakable. People feared him, respected him. No one got close to him unless he allowed it. He was mid-sentence, explaining a timeline to one of his managers, when Victoria walked past his table. Wu Bin stopped talking. His eyes followed her without his permission. Everything about her captured his attention. The way she walked with her shoulders back but her hands clasped nervously in front of her. The contrast between her obvious discomfort and that bold red lipstick. She was stunning, but more than that, she looked like someone in the process of becoming. Like she was shedding an old skin right there in the middle of the restaurant. He could not look away. Victoria felt the weight of someone's stare and glanced to her right. Her eyes locked with Wu Bin's. The connection was instant and electric. His gaze was intense but not threatening, confident, almost amused, like he knew something about her that she did not know about herself. 3 full seconds passed. Victoria's breath caught in her throat. Then she looked away quickly and hurried to her table, her heart hammering against her ribs. Wu Bin watched her sit down, watched her touch her lips self-consciously, watched her laugh at something her coworker said while sneaking glances back in his direction. One of his associates cleared his throat. "Sir." Wu Bin blinked and refocused on the conversation, but his attention was divided for the rest of the night. Every few minutes, his eyes drifted back to the woman in the red lipstick. He learned her laugh, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the exact angle of her smile. By the time her group started gathering their things to leave, Wu Bin had made a decision. It was impulsive, uncharacteristic, dangerous even, but he did not care. He wanted to know her. Victoria stood up with her coworkers, still feeling those eyes on her. She had caught him looking at least a dozen times throughout dinner. Every time their eyes met, something in her stomach flipped. She told herself it meant nothing. Rich men stared at women all the time. It did not mean anything. But when she headed toward the exit, and one of his men stepped politely into her path, she knew it meant something. "Excuse me, miss." The man was sharply dressed, Korean, maybe in his 30s. His tone was respectful but firm. "My employer would like to buy you a drink." Victoria's mouth went dry. She looked past him to the corner table. Wu Bin was watching her with the faintest trace of a smile, not cocky, just certain, like he already knew what her answer would be. Every instinct from her old life screamed at her to say no, to politely decline and leave. Strange men in expensive restaurants were not safe. This was not appropriate. But that same defiant voice that had convinced her to wear the lipstick whispered something different. "What if you said yes?" Victoria looked back at Brianna, who was watching with wide eyes and a knowing grin. Her coworker gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up. "Okay," Victoria heard herself say. The man nodded and gestured toward Wu Bin's table. Victoria walked over on shaking legs. Up close, the man was even more striking. Sharp jawline, dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog everything. His black suit was perfectly tailored, understated but clearly expensive. He stood when she approached, a gesture of respect that surprised her. "I am Wu Bin," he said simply. His English was flawless but carried a slight accent that made every word sound deliberate. "Victoria." "Victoria." He repeated her name like he was testing how it felt. Then his eyes flicked to her lips for half a second before meeting her gaze again. "That lipstick, first time." She blinked, startled. "How did you know?" "You keep touching your lips like you are not used to the feeling." He gestured to the chair across from him, which one of his men had already pulled out. "And you walk like someone who just made a decision that scares them." Victoria sat slowly, her mind racing. This man was observant, dangerously so. Wu Bin dismissed his associates with a subtle nod. They left immediately, no questions asked. Suddenly, it was just the two of them at the table. "I like people who scare themselves on purpose," Wu Bin continued, pouring her a glass of wine from the bottle on the table. "It means they are trying to grow." Victoria accepted the glass, her hands steadier now. "And what about you? Do you scare yourself?" His smile widened just a fraction. "Not often enough anymore. My life is very controlled." "That sounds lonely." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. "It can be." They talked for 2 hours. Wu Bin was mysterious about the specifics of his work, describing it only as international business and logistics, but he opened up about other things. Growing up between Seoul and San Francisco. Learning to navigate two cultures and never quite fitting into either. His love for classical music, especially piano compositions. His obsession with chess and strategy. Victoria found herself relaxing, talking about things she rarely shared. Her childhood in a restrictive religious community in Houston. How she had felt suffocated by expectations and rules. Her escape to California for college and the guilt that still followed her. Her struggle to figure out who she was when no one was watching. "You are still figuring it out," Wu Bin observed. "That is why the lipstick matters." "It is just lipstick." "No," his gaze was serious now. "It is a choice, a small rebellion, the first of many, I think." Victoria's chest tightened. This stranger saw her more clearly than people who had known her for years. When the restaurant staff started giving subtle hints that they were closing soon, Wu Bin walked her to the lobby. He did not ask for her number, did not suggest they meet again. He simply looked at her for a long moment and said, "I will see you again, Victoria." It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. She did not know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. "If you were Victoria, would you have been brave enough to wear that red lipstick?" Drop your answer in the comments, and if you are enjoying this story so far, hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Trust me, you will want to see where this goes. Now, let's continue. Victoria could not stop thinking about him. For 3 days, Wu Bin occupied space in her mind that should have been dedicated to work, to her new responsibilities, to anything else. She replayed their conversation on a loop, the way he looked at her, the things he said, the certainty in his voice when he told her they would see each other again. She had not given him her number. He had not asked, so how could he be so sure? On the 4th day, Victoria had a morning meeting in downtown San Jose with a potential client. She arrived early and decided to grab coffee from a small shop near the office building. The place was busy, filled with tech workers and business people getting their caffeine fix before meetings. Victoria stood in line, scrolling through emails on her phone, trying to focus on work. She was wearing minimal makeup today, just a tinted lip balm. She felt like herself again, boring maybe, but safe. "You are not wearing the red lipstick today." The voice came from directly behind her, low and amused. Victoria's heart stopped. She spun around. Wu Bin stood there in a black turtleneck and tailored slacks, looking annoyingly perfect for 9 in the morning. His expression was calm, but there was something playful in his eyes. It was just for that night," Victoria stammered, her brain struggling to catch up. "Shame," he stepped up beside her as the line moved forward. "It suited you." "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to sound casual and failing. "I have a meeting nearby. I needed coffee." He glanced at the menu board. "This is a good place. I come here often." Victoria studied his face, looking for signs that he was lying, but he seemed completely sincere. "This seems like a strange coincidence." "Does it?" Wu Bin's smile was barely there, but she saw it. "Maybe the universe wants us to talk again. Or maybe you had someone find out my schedule." "That would be excessive," he paused, though not inaccurate. Victoria's jaw dropped. "You are serious?" "I wanted to see you again. You did not give me your number, so I took initiative." He said it so matter-of-factly, like tracking down someone's location was a normal thing to do. "That is borderline stalking." "Borderline," he agreed. "But I am here now, and you do not seem particularly upset." He was right, which annoyed her. She should be upset. She should walk away. Instead, she said, "You are very confident." "I know what I want." The barista called for the next customer. Wu Bin ordered an Americano and then looked at Victoria expectantly. She sighed and ordered her latte. He paid for both before she could protest. They ended up sitting together at a small table by the window. Victoria told herself she would stay for 10 minutes, just to be polite. An hour later, they were still talking. This conversation went deeper than the first. Wu Bin told her about the pressure of living up to his family's legacy. How his father had built their organization with his bare hands, surviving prejudice and violence to create something lasting. How Wu Bin had been trained from age 10 to take over. Strategy, negotiation, control. He had no room for mistakes. "That sounds exhausting," Victoria said softly. "It is." Wu Bin stared into his coffee. "But it is my responsibility. My father gave me everything. I owe him this." "What about what you want?" He looked up at her. "No one has asked me that in a long time." Victoria felt a pang of sympathy. She told him about her own struggles with family expectations. The church community that raised her had very specific ideas about what a good woman should be. Modest, obedient, quiet. She had checked all those boxes for years until she could not breathe anymore. Moving to California was supposed to be freedom, but she still felt trapped by the need to be acceptable. "You wore that lipstick because you wanted to feel dangerous," Wu Bin said quietly. "But you are afraid that if you let yourself be dangerous, you will lose control." Victoria stared at him. He had just articulated something she had not been able to put into words. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "See people so clearly." "It is my job to read people, to understand what they want and what they fear." He leaned forward slightly. "You want freedom, real freedom, but you have been controlled for so long that you do not trust yourself with it." Her throat tightened. And what do you want? Wu Bin held her gaze. Right now, I want to keep talking to you. Victoria's phone buzzed. Her meeting was in 15 minutes. She needed to leave, but she did not want to. I have to go, she said reluctantly. Wu Bin nodded and stood when she did, always that old-fashioned respect. As she gathered her things, he pulled out a pen and wrote something on her coffee cup sleeve. His phone number. When you are ready to feel dangerous again, he said, handing her the cup, call me. Victoria took it, her fingers brushing his. The contact sent electricity up her arm. She walked to her meeting in a daze. The cup sleeve felt like it was burning a hole in her bag. Victoria did not call. For a week, she carried that coffee sleeve in her purse, looking at the number written in neat, precise handwriting. She thought about him constantly, during meetings, while cooking dinner, at the gym. His face appeared in her mind at random moments, along with his voice saying things that made her feel seen and exposed at the same time. But she did not call. Brianna noticed her distraction at work. You have been weird all week. What is going on? They were in the break room, and Victoria was staring at her sad desk salad without eating. She sighed. I met someone. Brianna's eyes lit up. The guy from the restaurant, the one who bought you a drink. Yeah. And I do not know. He is intense and mysterious, and he somehow found me at a coffee shop, which should be creepy but was actually kind of flattering. Girl, he is into you. What is the problem? Victoria shook her head. I do not know anything about him, not really. He is involved in some kind of international business, but he is vague about details, and people treat him like he is important, like scary important. Rich and powerful, I see the issue. Brianna's tone was sarcastic. I am serious. What if he is dangerous? Is your gut telling you he is dangerous? Victoria considered that. When she was with Wu Bin, she did not feel unsafe. She felt challenged, seen, excited. No. Then call him. Before Victoria could respond, her desk phone rang. It was the front desk security guard. Ms. Victoria, there was someone here asking about you. Her stomach dropped. What? A man, Korean, I think, expensive suit. He did not give a name, just asked if you worked here and what your role was. What did you tell him? Nothing. We do not give out employee information. I escorted him out, but honestly, he did not seem bothered. Just thanked me and left. Victoria felt cold. When was this? About 20 minutes ago. She thanked him and hung up. Brianna was watching her with concern. What was that about? Someone came here asking about me. Who? I do not know, but I think it is connected to Wu Bin. That night, Victoria sat on her couch in her small apartment in Mountain View, staring at her phone. She had pulled out the coffee sleeve and typed the number into her contacts, but had not pressed call. Her mind raced with possibilities, most of them bad. Finally, she called. He answered on the second ring. Victoria. Why did someone come to my office asking about me? She did not bother with pleasantries. Because I wanted to make sure you were safe. His tone was calm, like this was a completely reasonable explanation. Safe from what? A pause, longer than she liked. From people who might want to use you to get to me. Her blood turned to ice. What does that mean? It means that I have enemies, Victoria, people who watch me, and if they see me interested in someone, that person becomes a target. His voice softened slightly. I should not have approached you, but I could not help it. Victoria's hands were shaking. This was too much, too fast, too dangerous. I think we should not see each other again. The silence on the line stretched out. Then Wu Bin spoke, his voice quiet but firm. If that is what you want, I will respect it. But know this, I do not make mistakes about people, and you are someone worth the risk. Before she could respond, he hung up. Victoria sat there for a long time, staring at her phone. Part of her felt relieved. This was too complicated, too intense. She should walk away. But another part of her, the part that had worn the red lipstick, felt devastated. Victoria tried to move on. She threw herself into her new role at work, taking on extra projects and staying late at the office. She went on a date with a guy named Russell from her gym. He was nice, normal, safe. They had dinner at a chain restaurant in Sunnyvale, and he talked about his job in marketing and his fantasy football league. Victoria smiled and nodded, and felt absolutely nothing. When Russell walked her to her car and tried to kiss her, she turned her head at the last second. He got her cheek. He looked confused and a little hurt. She apologized and said she was not ready. He said he understood, but she could tell he was disappointed. She drove home feeling empty. Russell was exactly the kind of man she should want. Uncomplicated, transparent, but all she could think about was dark eyes and a voice that seemed to understand her better than she understood herself. 2 weeks after her last conversation with Woo Bin, Victoria was working late at the Vertex Solutions office in Palo Alto. Most of the staff had gone home, but she was on a deadline for a client presentation. It was nearly 9 when the building's fire alarm went off. Victoria jumped, her heart racing. The alarm was deafening, echoing through the mostly empty office. Emergency lights flashed. The automated announcement system instructed everyone to evacuate immediately. She grabbed her purse and phone and headed for the stairs, joining the handful of other employees who had been working late. Outside, fire trucks were already pulling up, lights flashing. People clustered on the sidewalk across the street, confused and annoyed. Victoria stood with a group from accounting, all of them checking their phones and speculating about what had happened. A false alarm, probably, or someone burned popcorn in the break room again. That was when she saw him. A man in a gray hoodie stood across the street, partially hidden by a parked car. He was staring directly at her, not at the building, not at the fire trucks, at her. Their eyes met. He pulled out his phone, made a call, and kept staring. Every hair on Victoria's body stood up. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. She turned to one of her coworkers. "I am going to my car." "We are not supposed to leave yet." "I will be close by." Victoria started walking toward the parking garage, which was separate from the main building. She tried to look casual, but her heart was pounding. She glanced back. The man in the hoodie was following her. She walked faster, so did he. The parking garage was poorly lit and mostly empty at this hour. Victoria's car was on the 3rd level. She reached the stairwell and started climbing, her heels clicking loudly on the concrete. Behind her, she heard the door open again. Footsteps. She broke into a run. She burst out onto the 3rd level and sprinted toward her car, fumbling for her keys. The footsteps behind her were getting closer. She could hear his breathing. Suddenly, a black SUV appeared from around the corner, tires squealing slightly. It pulled up right next to her. The back door flew open. Woo Bin was inside. "Get in." Victoria did not hesitate. She dove into the SUV. The door slammed shut, and the vehicle peeled out before she even had her seatbelt on. She twisted around and looked out the back window. The man in the hoodie had stopped running. He stood in the middle of the parking level, phone to his ear, watching them drive away. "Who was that?" Victoria gasped, her whole body shaking. Woo Bin's expression was cold and hard in a way she had not seen before. "Someone sent to watch you, possibly to take you." The words did not make sense. "Take me? Why? I am nobody." He turned to look at her, and for the first time she saw something raw and unguarded in his face. Anger, fear, guilt. "Because I made the mistake of letting people see that you matter to me." The SUV drove for 20 minutes, heading into the hills above Palo Alto. Victoria sat in silence, trying to process what had just happened. Woo Bin made several phone calls in rapid Korean, his tone clipped and authoritative. She caught a few words but could not follow the conversations. Finally, they pulled up to a gate set into a high wall. The gate opened automatically, and they drove through. The property was massive, a modern mansion with floor-to-ceiling windows that glowed with warm light. The landscaping was immaculate. This was Los Altos Hills, one of the wealthiest zip codes in the entire country. The SUV stopped in front of the main entrance. Woo Bin got out and came around to open her door. His hand was steady when he helped her out, but she could see the tension in his jaw. "Where are we?" Victoria asked. "My home. You will be safe here." Inside, the house was stunning. Minimalist design, expensive art, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. But Victoria barely noticed. She was too focused on the security. Cameras everywhere. Men in dark suits stationed at various points. This was not just a home. It was a fortress. Wu Bin led her to a sitting room and gestured for her to sit on a leather sofa. He poured her a glass of water from a bar cart, then sat across from her. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "You think?" His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "My organization controls shipping routes and logistics across the Pacific. We move goods legally, but we also move information. We facilitate deals that other people cannot. Politicians, corporations, we are the invisible infrastructure that makes certain things happen. That still does not explain why someone was following me. Recently, a rival organization based in Los Angeles has been trying to take over some of our operations. They have been aggressive, looking for leverage, anything that might make me vulnerable." He paused. 3 weeks ago, I was seen with you, twice. That was enough." Victoria felt sick. "So this is my fault for talking to you?" "No," his voice was sharp. "This is my fault for being selfish. I knew the risks and I pursued you anyway." "Why?" Wu Bin leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Because for the first time in my life, I saw someone and forgot to be strategic. I just wanted to know you. And that was stupid and reckless, and now you are in danger because of it." Victoria stared at him. This powerful, controlled man looked genuinely distressed. "What happens now?" "I have people tracking the man who followed you. We will find out who sent him and handle it. In the meantime, you stay here." "For how long?" "Until it is safe. I have a job, a life." "I know, and I am sorry." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. "I will make this right, Victoria, I promise you that." She should be furious. She should demand he take her home. But instead, she found herself asking, "Have you done this before? Protected someone like this?" He turned to look at her. "No, I do not let people get close enough to need protecting." "Then why me?" "I have been asking myself that same question." He crossed back to her, sitting on the coffee table so they were at eye level. "And the only answer I have is that you are different. You make me want things I thought I had given up on." "Like what?" "Like something real." Victoria's breath caught. This was insane. She barely knew this man. But somehow, sitting in his fortress of a house, she felt safer than she had in years. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay. I will stay, for now, but you have to tell me everything, no more secrets." Wu Bin nodded. "Deal." Victoria spent the next 3 days at Wu Bin's estate. She called in sick to work, hatting the lie but understanding the necessity. Wu Bin had a guest room prepared for her, a massive suite with its own bathroom and a view of the valley that was breathtaking. But she did not spend much time there. Instead, she found herself in Wu Bin's office, watching him work. He had not been exaggerating about his organization. She watched him coordinate shipments across 3 continents, negotiate deals worth millions, and manage dozens of employees with calm efficiency. And she started to understand him better. This was not a man who chose power for its own sake. This was someone who had inherited a responsibility and took it seriously. He was not cruel, but he was ruthless when needed. Fair, but uncompromising. On the second day, Victoria noticed something while reviewing some documents he had left on the desk. Financial patterns. Shipping manifests from the Los Angeles organization that was causing problems. She spent an hour cross-referencing data, using the same analytical skills she used at her job. When Wu Bin came back to the office, she handed him her findings. "They are moving shipments through Long Beach, but the routes are inefficient. They are paying almost 30% more than they should be, which means they are either incompetent or laundering money." Wu Bin stared at the document, then at her. "How did you figure this out?" "It is what I do. Data analysis, pattern recognition." He sat down slowly. You are better at this than half my people. So use me. I am stuck here anyway. Let me help. Over the next day, Victoria and Wu Bin worked together. She dug into the rival organization's operations, finding weaknesses and inconsistencies. Wu Bin used that information to apply pressure, cutting off their supply lines and making their operations more expensive. But it was not enough. The rivals were getting desperate, which made them more dangerous. On the fourth night, Wu Bin came to her room. Victoria was sitting on the bed in borrowed pajamas, reading on her tablet. He knocked softly on the open door. "Can I come in?" "Sure." He sat in the chair by the window, looking tired. "We identified the man who followed you. His name is Sam. He is a low-level contractor, not loyal to anyone. He gave up his employer in exchange for money." "Who sent him?" "A man named Jin Park. He runs the Lowe's Angels operation." Wu Bin ran a hand through his hair. "Jin wants to negotiate. He is offering to back off in exchange for access to some of our shipping routes." "Are you going to give it to him?" "No, if I show weakness now, others will try the same thing." He looked at her. "But that means this is not over. He will keep coming." Victoria's stomach tightened. "So what do we do?" "I have an idea, but you are not going to like it." He laid out the plan. There was a high-profile charity event in Menlo Park in 2 days. Tech executives, venture capitalists, old money families. Wu Bin had been invited and was expected to attend. His idea was to bring Victoria, make their relationship public, draw Jin out. "You want to use me as bait," Victoria said. "I want to make you untouchable. If everyone knows you are with me, you become too high-profile to target. Jin will have to negotiate on my terms or back off entirely. Or he could see it as a challenge. That is the risk." Victoria stood and walked to the window, looking out at the lights. "You are asking me to trust you with my life." "Yes." She turned around. "I need to know something first. Is this real? What is happening between us? Or am I just a problem you are trying to solve?" Wu Bin stood and crossed to her. He stopped close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "You are the most real thing in my life right now, and that terrifies me." He reached up and touched her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I will keep you safe, Victoria. I swear it." She covered his hand with hers. "Okay, let us do it." The charity event was held at a private estate in Menlo Park, another enclave of extreme wealth. The cause was environmental conservation, and the guest list was a who's who of Silicon Valley power players. Tickets started at $10,000 per person. Wu Bin had a stylist bring Victoria several dresses to choose from. She picked a simple black gown with a fitted silhouette, elegant but not flashy, and she wore the red lipstick, the same shade from that first night. When she came downstairs, Wu Bin was waiting in the foyer. He wore a dark gray suit that fit him perfectly. When he saw her, he stopped moving entirely. "You are trying to kill me," he said quietly. Victoria smiled. "You said it suited me." "I was right." The drive to Menlo Park took 15 minutes. Wu Bin briefed her in the car. His security team would be positioned throughout the event. She was to stay close to him at all times. If anything felt wrong, she was to signal one of his men immediately. "What is the signal?" Victoria asked. "Touch your left earring." She practiced a few times, trying to make it look natural. Her hands were shaking slightly. Wu Bin noticed and took her hand in his. "You do not have to do this. I can still take you somewhere safe, somewhere far away." Victoria shook her head. "I am tired of hiding. I have been hiding my whole life." "This is different." "I know, but I trust you." Something shifted in his expression, like she had just given him something precious. At the event, they made an entrance. Victoria could feel people staring. Wu Bin was known in these circles, respected but also slightly feared. Showing up with a date was unusual for him. People took notice. They moved through the crowd, Wu Bin introducing her to various business associates and tech founders. Victoria played her part perfectly, smiling and making small talk. But she was hyper-aware of everything around her, every exit, every unfamiliar face. An hour in, she excused herself to use the restroom. Two of Wu Bin's men followed at a discreet distance. She was washing her hands when another woman came in, a stunning Korean woman in a red dress. "You are with Wu Bin," the woman said. It was not a question. "Yes." "Be careful. He is not as stable as he seems." Victoria frowned. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "Someone who cares about him. That is all you need to know." She left before Victoria could respond. Victoria stood there, unnerved. When she came out, she told Wu Bin about the encounter. His expression darkened. "That was Min. She works for Jin Park." "Why would she warn me?" "To make you doubt me, to create fear." He took her hand. "Do not listen to her." They stayed another hour. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. No threats, no incidents. Victoria started to relax. That was when it happened. She was standing near the bar, waiting for Wu Bin to finish a conversation with a venture capitalist, when someone grabbed her arm. Hard. She turned and saw two men she did not recognize. They were not dressed for the event. Too casual, wrong energy. "You need to come with us," one of them said quietly. Victoria's heart slammed into her throat. She reached for her earring, but before she could touch it, one of the men gripped her wrist. "Do not do that." They started pulling her toward a side exit. Victoria tried to dig her heels in, but they were too strong. Panic flooded her system. Where was Wu Bin's security? Why was no one stopping this? Then she remembered. One of Wu Bin's men was supposed to be a mole. He had mentioned it earlier. Someone on the inside working for Jin. She opened her mouth to scream, but one of the men clamped a hand over it. They were almost at the door. She could see a car waiting outside. Suddenly, the man holding her left arm made a choking sound and let go. Victoria stumbled. Wu Bin was there. He had moved so fast she had not even seen him coming. He had the man's arm twisted at an unnatural angle, forcing him to his knees. The second man reached into his jacket, but three of Wu Bin's security team materialized out of nowhere. Within seconds, both men were on the ground, subdued but not seriously hurt. Wu Bin pulled Victoria against him, his arm around her waist. She could feel his heart pounding, or maybe that was hers. "You are safe," he murmured into her hair. "I have you." Security guards from the event were rushing over now, along with several guests. Wu Bin kept Victoria close, shielding her from view. He gave quick instructions to his men in Korean. The two attackers were hauled to their feet and escorted out a back entrance. Someone from the event staff approached, asking if they needed to call the police. Wu Bin declined politely, saying it was a misunderstanding that had been resolved. The staff member looked skeptical but did not push. Wu Bin led Victoria outside to where his SUV was waiting. Once they were inside, he finally let himself show emotion. He cupped her face in both hands, searching her eyes. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm okay." "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I should have seen this coming." "You saved me." "I put you in danger in the first place." His voice was rough. "This was a mistake, all of it." Victoria grabbed his wrists, keeping his hands on her face. "Look at me. I chose this. I chose to be here, and I am okay." Wu Bin closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were fierce. "No one touches you again. Do you understand? I will burn everything down before I let anyone hurt you." Then he kissed her, hard and desperate and full of everything he had been holding back. Victoria kissed him back, her hands fisting in his jacket. The fear. The adrenaline, the weeks of tension, it all poured into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Take me home," Victoria whispered. "You're home." Wu Bin told the driver to go. As the SUV pulled away from the estate, Victoria leaned against him, his arms solid and warm around her shoulders. She had never felt more alive. The attempted kidnapping changed everything. Within 24 hours, Wu Bin's organization had dismantled Jin Park's operations in California. Not through violence, but through strategy. Every shipping contract canceled. Every political contact pressured to cut ties. Every financial avenue closed off. Jin's organization went from a threat to irrelevant in less than a day. The mole in Wu Bin's security team was identified and removed. Not killed, but exiled from the business world so completely that he might as well have been erased. Wu Bin had promised Victoria he would make it right. He had kept that promise. But the experience left Victoria shaken, not because of the danger. She had been scared, yes, but she had also felt powerful, alive. For the first time, she had chosen something risky and survived. What shook her was the realization of how deep she had fallen for a man whose world was nothing like hers. After 3 more days at the estate, Wu Bin sat her down in his office. "It is safe now. You can go home." Victoria looked up from the laptop she had been using to catch up on work emails. Just like that. Jin has left California entirely. He knows better than to come back, and everyone who matters knows that you are under my protection. He paused. "You are safe, Victoria. You can return to your normal life." She closed the laptop slowly. "And what about us?" Wu Bin's expression was carefully neutral. "That is your choice. I will not push you into something you are not ready for." "What do you want?" "I want you in my life, but I want you to be sure." Victoria stood and walked to the window. The view still took her breath away. "I need some time to think, to process all of this." "I understand." Wu Bin had one of his drivers take her back to her apartment in Mountain View. The goodbye was brief, almost formal. He kissed her forehead and told her to call if she needed anything. Then she was alone. Her apartment felt small and quiet after the estate. Victoria stood in the middle of her living room, surrounded by her normal life, and felt completely out of place. For the next 4 days, she tried to return to normal. She went back to work. She had lunch with Brianna and dodged questions about where she had been. She went to the gym. She meal prepped for the week. But everything felt like she was going through the motions, like she was pretending to be someone she used to be. On the 4th night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She thought about her life before Wu Bin. Safe, predictable, small. She had been so proud of herself for moving to California, for getting a good job, for being independent. But she realized now that she had just traded one set of constraints for another. She had spent her whole life being told who to be, first by her family and church, then by her own fear of being too much, too bold, too different. The red lipstick had been the first crack in that armor, and Wu Bin had widened that crack into a door. On the 5th day, Victoria woke up with absolute clarity. She went to work, finished up a few projects, and then submitted her 2 weeks' notice. Her boss was shocked. Brianna was stunned, but Victoria felt lighter than she had in years. That evening, she went home and put on the red lipstick. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was confident, certain, ready. She drove to Los Altos Hills. Security recognized her car and opened the gate immediately. She parked in front of the main house and walked to the door. Before she could knock, it opened. Wu Bin stood there in dark jeans and a white shirt, looking surprised. "Victoria." She walked right up to him, not stopping until they were inches apart. "I spent my whole life being told who to be, what to want, how to live. I am done with that." Wu Bin's eyes searched her face. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I choose this. I choose you. I choose the version of myself that I am when I am with you." His carefully controlled expression cracked. Relief, joy, something deeper that made her chest ache. He cupped her face with both hands. "You have no idea what you do to me." "Good," Victoria whispered, "because you do the same to me." He kissed her like he had been starving for it. Victoria wrapped her arms around his neck, kissing him back with everything she had. He walked her backward into the house, kicking the door shut behind them without breaking the kiss. When they finally came up for air, both of them were smiling. "I quit my job," Victoria said. Wu Bin blinked. "You what?" "I gave my 2 weeks' notice today. I am tired of playing it safe." "What will you do?" "I thought I might work for you. You said I was better at analysis than half your people. Put me to use." His smile widened. You want to work for me? With you, there is a difference. Wu Bin laughed, an actual surprised laugh that made him look years younger. Then he kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. Move in with me, he said against her lips. That is fast. I do not care. I want you here, always. Victoria pulled back enough to look at him. Okay. Okay. Yes, I will move in with you. He picked her up, making her squeal with surprise, and carried her toward the stairs. Best decision you have ever made. Victoria laughed, holding on to him. We will see about that. 6 months later, Victoria stood in front of the mirror in the master bedroom of the Los Altos Hills estate, applying red lipstick. She wore it every day now, sometimes bold red, sometimes a deeper burgundy, sometimes a bright coral, but always something that made her feel like herself. The girl who had been afraid to stand out was gone. In her place was a woman who had found her power. She worked with Wu Bin now, using her analytical skills to streamline his operations and identify new opportunities. She was good at it, better than good. She had suggested they expand into renewable energy logistics, and that division was now one of their most profitable. More importantly, she was happy. Wu Bin was intense and demanding, but he was also thoughtful and surprisingly funny. He played piano for her at night. He brought her coffee in the mornings. He listened when she talked about missing her family, even though they had not spoken to her since she told them about Wu Bin. Their relationship was not always easy. They fought sometimes. He could be controlling, she could be stubborn, but they always came back to each other. Tonight, they were having dinner at a private restaurant in Saratoga, another wealthy enclave nestled in the hills. Just the two of them. No business, no associates, just them. Victoria finished her lipstick and grabbed her purse. Downstairs, Wu Bin was waiting by the car, looking devastating in a dark suit. He smiled when he saw her. Red, he said approvingly. Always. The drive to Saratoga was quiet and comfortable. Wu Bin held her hand on the center console, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. They had been together 6 months, but the attraction between them had not faded. If anything, it had deepened into something more solid, more real. The restaurant was elegant and intimate, with only 10 tables. Their reservation was at a private corner table with a view of the valley. They ordered wine and appetizers, talking easily about everything and nothing. Halfway through the meal, Victoria noticed Wu Bin seemed distracted. He kept touching his jacket pocket, checking his phone, looking nervous, which was unlike him. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, no, maybe. He set down his fork. I am not good at this. At what? He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket and set it on the table between them. Victoria's heart stopped. Before you open it, Wu Bin said, I need you to know something. I have made many calculated decisions in my life, strategic moves, planned outcomes, but you were not one of them. You were the best accident that ever happened to me. Victoria's eyes were already filling with tears. You walked into that restaurant 6 months ago wearing red lipstick for the first time, and I forgot how to be strategic. I just wanted to know you, and now I cannot imagine my life without you in it. He pushed the box toward her. Marry me, Victoria. Wear that red lipstick at our wedding. Let me spend the rest of my life staring at you. She opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant. A single diamond on a platinum band. It was perfect. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Wu Bin's face transformed. Pure joy. He stood and came around the table, taking the ring from the box and sliding it onto her finger. Then he pulled her up and kissed her, not caring that they were in a restaurant. Around them, the other diners started clapping. Someone whistled. Victoria laughed against Wu Bin's lips, tears streaming down her face. When they finally sat back down, both of them were grinning like idiots. I love you, Wu Bin said, simple, direct, true. I love you too. They finished dinner in a happy daze, making plans and dreaming about the future. Wu Bin wanted a small wedding. Victoria wanted her friend Brianna as a bridesmaid. They debated locations and timelines and guest lists. Later, as they drove back to Los Altos Hills, Victoria looked at the ring on her finger. It caught the light from the dashboard, sparkling. She thought about the girl she used to be, scared, constrained, living a half-life because she was too afraid to take up space. That girl was gone, and Victoria did not miss her at all. She had chosen danger. She had chosen love. She had chosen herself. And she had never been happier. Wu Bin glanced over at her. "What are you thinking about?" "Lipstick." He laughed. "Of course you are." That night changed everything. If I had not worn it, you might not have noticed me. "I would have noticed you," he said with absolute certainty. "Maybe it would have taken longer, but I would have found you eventually." Victoria smiled and leaned over to kiss his cheek. "I am glad I did not make you wait." When they got home, Wu Bin carried her over the threshold even though they had been living together for months. She laughed and called him ridiculous. He said he was practicing for their wedding. That night, lying in bed with Wu Bin's arms around her, Victoria felt completely at peace. She had traveled so far from that scared girl in the bathroom mirror. She had faced danger and fear and come out the other side stronger. She had found love, real love, the kind that saw all of you and wanted you anyway. And it had all started with red lipstick and a man who could not stop looking.